All right, guys, we are back. And episode 3, we already have our first guest on. So we have Ariel here with us today, who Carolyn is going to introduce because they're actually really good friends. So I'm going to hand it over to you to get us started.
Yeah, absolutely. So we have our first guest is Ariel Barley. She's coming from Orange County, California. Or are you in Los Angeles right now?
Los Angeles, Culver City area. Yeah, on the west side.
Yes, and she is an experienced Olympian, bikini athlete, and also goes unconventional from many other, athletes that we do see in the bodybuilding space. She's a coach herself and also has a full-time job. So it's wonderful that she's able to join us tonight. So it's great to see
Yeah,
you.
thank you. I'm excited.
We're so pumped to have you. So I know, Carolyn, you already mentioned like unconventional. So Ariel, can you kind of elaborate a little bit on like your unconventional approach to bodybuilding?
Yeah. Well, after someone finishes a prep, they usually do the reverse dieting thing, which as a disclaimer, I have nothing against reverse dieting. Um, I think it serves a purpose, but I think it's very situational. I think it's also um I don't know. I feel like it's blown out of proportion. But I don't do reverse dieting. After a prep, I just eat regular. I introduce foods that I want to eat. Um, I don't slowly introduce carbs. I know that's a big thing for a lot of people. I kind of just eat whatever I want. Luckily, I eat a lot at home. I cook a lot of my own food. Um, and I think that is a large part of why I don't reverse diet, as well as I don't have a big sweet tooth. And when I do want sugar, I'm just very mindful. But I also think it has a lot to do with my relationship with food. I have a really good relationship with food. I'm also very knowledgeable about foods that are considered bad foods when in reality it's not really a bad food. So I think there's a lot of variables. Um, but yeah, I don't do a traditional reverse diet. I kind of just eat whatever I want, basically.
Yes.
That's
Yeah.
awesome.
So
I think that there's some really key things there that you said is like, you know, and Amanda has done this really well too, her last prep, when you can talk about that as well. But what I saw there was like, you know what you're eating, you're making meals at home, and it's not like you're blowing things out of proportion. You're still doing things mindfully. So you have a
yeah,
good relationship with food. And I think that's
yeah,
where people can already kind of get it mixed up or confused about just like not following anything, reversing. You know, if you're
yeah,
talking about a brand new athlete who's been through their first prep, they're super, super hungry, has all these cravings, they don't know what it means to do that or how to handle that. That's where I think it can probably go wrong. So I'm glad
yeah,
that we're talking about this today because it's a really big topic of like what to do. You know, I've had to talk about it with my athletes, have different approaches to each one too. And I know we've all done different things, probably each prep too.
yeah.
Or like reverse dieting. It's always different. So yeah, Amanda, do you want to chime in and talk about that too?
Oh yeah, because by the way, guys, like, because Ariel, correct me if I'm wrong, you've been qualified and been to the Olympia twice, correct?
Yes, last year, and then my first year I turned pro. Yes.
In 2021. Yeah. So
Uh-huh.
That's
guys,
awesome.
this is a big freaking deal. Like having not only a bikini pro, but a two-time Olympian on here.
Aw.
This because I think what can happen is, I'm sure you know this. There's a lot of like prominent coaches in our industry that are very popular on social media, and they put out a lot of great information, but I think they also put out how they navigate post show, and it's kind of like that's just how it should be, and like there's no
Right.
other option. So a lot of girls are left with like, okay, well, what if I mess up and I didn't perfectly reverse my 10 carbs added every week? And then they can kind of be left with the feeling of like, can I even do it? Like, is bodybuilding not for me then? If I don't do it that way, am I doing it wrong? So I love this. And this is incredibly valuable because we're hearing it from one of the best. And so my question is, have you always reversed that way? Or did you go through like a reverse at some point and you're like, okay, this is not for me? Like what is got caused you to kind of do it this way?
Yeah. Well, I started competing like mid COVID, like mid 2020. And before I lived a very similar lifestyle, just without stepping on stage. So I kind of already had more knowledge, I think, than a lot of people that start competing. And it was a very interesting learning curve. Like I never heard of like carbs being bad. I never heard of any of that until I started bodybuilding. And so I just did my own thing. I really didn't have any reason because I knew I'm like, these are not food, so I'm not going to listen to the hype. But I did have one interesting off season where I did eat a lot of sugar, and that was after a long time of competing. It was when I got my pro card to the Olympian. I was competing like on and off for about a year and a half, and my body was just super wrecked. And I like did the whole binge thing. I was like a typical like super inflamed doing that whole thing. So I quickly realized that you don't have to traditionally reverse diet. You just need to be mindful of what the heck you're eating after you come off being super lean like that. And so that's kind of where it began. But I really just I just thought it was always so bizarre with just like the education and like the culture in bodybuilding when it comes to the nutrition piece. Because I feel like that's probably the most important out of anything is the nutrition. It's key. So I always thought it was just so interesting that there was taboo foods when they're not really taboo.
Yeah, and the one thing I want to emphasize too is how you're talking about, quality over quantity, is that really focused on the nutrient density. Because that was something I found like after ending, prep earlier this year, I wasn't craving anything particular. It was just nutrient dense foods, like having fruit back in your diet or getting a variety of gluten. It's always something that is easily missed. So people automatically think that, oh, I just need more carbs and fats. And I'm like, well, what are your sources that you're using?
Yeah.
You end up craving those similar sugary foods even more, unless if you just had a big bowl of berries and chocolate before bed. I swear it works.
It does. Yeah.
And the key thing here too, like you said, is that you have that foundation understanding of nutrition. It doesn't mean that like you end your show and, aside from like that one season where you're doing it a little bit slower. So it kind of incentivized the mind to want to kind of binge just because you're so lacking just food in general that when you're anything, it's a very, like when your body's really lean, it's going to drive you towards anything. Cause it doesn't know you're a bodybuilding show. It just knows like, why are we skinny?
Yeah. Why are we deprived right now?
Are we deprived? It doesn't know that it's a famine. It doesn't know that it's a bodybuilding show. It just knows that it's starving. And if you're around food, it's going to be like, girl, that leaf looks real good. So eat it. But you have that foundation of nutrition and you're not just going out and just eating whatever the hell. Like you have this structure where you're like, okay, I want to fuel my body, eat things that you enjoy and bring things back in that we're missing in prep. Because we all like, doesn't matter. Like when you're prepping, like, yes, things have to get whittled down. You're missing a lot of food.
Oh yeah.
Add that variety back in. Cause I have a lot of my clients have competed for the first time and you try to warn them ahead of time, like, hey, you're going to be hungry after the show. This is going to be normal. I would rather you communicate with me and eat more of the foods you're eating and not just go out and get like a large pizza and ice cream and just throw your gut into a tailspin, because that's where you can have such a problem. And I'm sure, and that's why like what you're saying is so valuable, because you're not saying like continue to starve yourself a little less slowly as you reverse, but you're also saying, but nutrition is key here.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think it's also important, like, I mean, the education piece is one thing, but I think it also depends on how people prep sometimes. Because there are certain preps where I am like, starved. I'm so hungry after prep. Like this, I competed earlier this year, or like last year, I didn't really have specific cravings. I think one I wanted like beef and rice. I don't know, it was like so weird, like nothing substantial, So I think a lot of it too has to do with what you're doing in prep. You're going to be hungry regardless, but I think there's been better preps that I've had that set me up for success when I am in an off season.
Yeah. And I'm sure the experience, just knowing what to expect, knowing what's going to happen on the back end of it is super helpful too. Cause it's not like when the first time, and for people that have never competed, like if you've never gotten that lean before, you hear about it until you experience like what it actually feels like to want to cry, to walk from your couch to like the kitchen.
Yes.
It's hard it's hard. Like you say that and people think like, oh, okay. And then they experience it and they're like, okay, I like just like 3 stairs. It's just like, I can't.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
Or the fact
When you're
that
just so lean that like you can feel all of your tendons in your legs, like when you're going down the stairs, like moving, and you're like, this is weird.
Yeah.
That's how you know that it's like you're at that point. But how do you, what would you tell someone that, maybe has a mindset of like, I just want all the sugar, and like does the hoarding of food, for post show and everything like that. Like, what would you
Mhm.
kind of give someone some advice towards like having the right mindset about food?
Yeah, I would say definitely don't put it in your pantry. Don't buy anything, don't keep anything, just don't have access to it. Literally, like that one year, I did the whole like buying things and keeping it in my cabinet. I was like, oh my God, I can't wait till I'm done. And I like got super inflamed. I like blew up because it was easily accessible. Like just don't keep it at all. Like if you're craving ice cream or something, force yourself to go buy it. Like don't have a big tub sitting in your freezer ready to devour, because you probably will eat the entire thing instead of going to get a cone, you know? So I think honestly it's simple, but it's very effective. Um, if it's not in front of your face, yeah, are you supposed to get it? Like just don't keep it. Yeah.
Mhm.
And the other thing to add to that too, we're definitely lucky almost to live on our own, especially when you're coming out of prep. So
Yes.
it can definitely be
Yes.
harder with partners who are not quite understanding, or if they
Mm-hmm.
are competitors too, but are in a different season, then they may end
Yeah.
up putting stuff in the house that can be tempting. But say if you are living with a partner that has foods that may be tempting for you, I say just communicate that to them, just being like,
Yeah.
hey, nothing against you. I'm just in a vulnerable place right now and I want to stay accountable.
Yeah.
Then just
Yeah.
heads up, because then they'll have that extra eye on the side being like, hey, you have to stick to your reverse or whatever conventional method that you want to do, but just being like, hey, yeah, you can enjoy those cookies, but don't eat the whole box, please, because
Yeah.
your partner probably wants some too.
Yeah. Yeah. And I still do that like now. Like I just can't have certain stuff. Like I'll keep all the fruit, all the good stuff easily accessible, but I love chips. Like I am like a savory, crunchy girl. I will eat a whole bag of chips, but I only buy them when it's the right time to buy them. Like I cannot leave them in my pantry, because if I do, that's all I will eat. Still to this day, I'm like, I just don't keep it in front of me, you know?
I would also say have someone put, or like if you're with somebody who doesn't compete, for example, have them put all their like snack foods like up on the very highest shelf or something. So then
Yeah.
it's just out of sight, but you also can't reach it.
Also,
Yeah.
So I know not everyone's as short as I am. Everyone's not 9, but at least for me it works. But it does help too, just having like your own little spot too, where
That's
like this is
smart.
where your food is at, kind of thing. I have clients that live with their parents and stuff, or have kids and everything, so I think that that's a big important thing as well too.
You know what I've noticed with this too, and like actually this will lead into my next question for you, Ariel, is I think part of this is mindset as well. And it's
Hmm.
having that mental resiliency, because even like all of us, we've all known people that they just struggle with it more than others. Like even if someone, like I'm a food girly, like these two know I love food, and I will be damned if I mess with my prep. You know what I mean? Like eat a gram off of what I'm supposed to. But at the same time, on the back end of it, I have learned, because I have reversed slow, I reversed fast, I reversed where I didn't even reverse, just like how you are. And I just added good food back in and have some treats here and there. But I grew up competing in other activities. And so it kind of fostered that mindset of like, when I'm locked in, I'm locked in. And I think there are some people where that is not a skill they've acquired yet, where it's like if they feel some discomfort, they're not used to pushing through that to get to the end result and see the long game. So my question for you is, I know you said you started competing in 2020, which is only a few years ago. Were you an athlete growing up, like in high school, or did you do anything athletic before?
Yeah, so I was an athlete. I ran track for a long time. I was a sprinter. I did pretty much like all the sports. I was just like, I love to be outside. I was not a good student. Like I was a well-behaved student, but I was like, honestly, like a C average student, not gonna lie. I was like not very, it wasn't my thing, but I was really good at sports. So I did track, basketball, soccer. I did like dance, karate. Yeah. So I did a lot of athletic things for a very long time. Yeah.
And that's awesome because I feel like track is probably one of the hardest sports out there, especially strengthening. Like I here's the thing. I'm the most horrible athlete of all time. I grew up riding horses and not athletic at all. Thank God for bodybuilding. It's like you're lifting weights in place. That's good for me. But people I know that ran track are like the physical pain you have to push through to progress and to continue to beat the times. It's something else.
Yeah. And it's, I think back and I'm like, I did that for fun, It's crazy. Like I did that for fun. Like it's pretty tough.
That's incredible. So going from that, how did you discover bodybuilding and what got you into competing?
Yeah, I was honestly pretty bored. It sounds weird, but it's true. I would go to the gym all the time. I'm an early bird, so I'm that weird person that goes early in the morning. And I was looking for just an outlet, like something new. I was working a lot, so I had a high stress career at that time. So I was looking for an outlet. And 3 different people I remember vividly, different mornings would ask me like, oh, do you compete? And I didn't know what that was. Like I knew Arnold Schwarzenegger, but I didn't know, that's all I knew. Like I didn't know there was like female or anything. I swear to God, I was like, what is that? I was like, no, I'm not doing anything. They're like, oh, you come so early. You're so dedicated. And I was like, oh, I don't know. I just like it. It's an outlet. I feel good when I leave here mentally and physically. And so on the 3rd person, I went home and I looked and the first person that popped up on Google was Angelica in bikini. And I was like, that's interesting. And I was like, but I'm never doing that. So then months went by and I don't know, I guess I kind of just got interested and I randomly, my partner at the time, I came home to him and I was like, I'm not drinking anything for the next 8 weeks. It was 8 weeks back then, not even 12. I had no clue what I was doing. I was like, I'm just not going to drink liquor for 8 weeks. And then I did my first show in NPC and it was pretty cool. And I won it. I won the overall and I coached myself. And all I did though, that's a whole nother conversation, but I just literally did not eat. Like I thought that was the way to go. I just ate my meals were like this big. I was so scrawny. I was lean, I got lean, but like muscle didn't really exist. Like I just didn't know what I was doing, but I won. And so of course, when you get that first win, you're like, oh yeah, you feel super good. And so then I met Kimoto after that. And then I just kind of stuck with it.
So your first show ever, was that in 2020 and then you turned pro in 2021? It was junior nationals, right?
Yes. Junior nats. Yeah. And my first show was like a muscle contest show. Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
I did 2.
Kayla and I competed at junior nats in 2021.
Yes, we did. Oh my God, we were there.
I was like, wait, I remember this. Yeah. Oh my God. What height class were you in?
I was F. I'm 5'5". I was F, yeah.
Okay. I'm H because I'm 5'9". I'm an Amazon.
Okay. Cool.
I remember you because I remember being like, oh my God, she's so beautiful. Like, I think, did you have a purple suit?
Yes, purple. And my hair was lighter back then. It was like a red, orange. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
I remember looking, I was just like, oh my God, she's so pretty.
Oh, thank you.
Oh, I remember that. That is so funny. Kayla and I were both a lot smaller back then. It's funny, Kayla's 4'9" and I'm 5'9", so we look absolutely next to each other.
What a combo.
And I compete in figure, so like I'm just a little like muscly.
Muscle.
Yeah. I was one spot away from my pro card at that junior nats, and then I did USA's, and then I got my pro card that show. So
sweet.
Yeah, I'm right there with you. Not an Olympian, but it's got my pro card.
That's awesome.
But no, that's super cool. I didn't even put that together, Amanda.
I was just thinking, I was like, wait, that was the prep we kind of died. Okay, I remember.
Oh, sure did.
That is so cool. Okay, so you did junior nats and won, and then you qualified shortly after that because that show's in July or June.
Yeah,
June.
Yeah, June. Yeah. I did. It was really a interesting situation because Kim was like, why don't you just do your pro debut? Because I was one of those bodies that I didn't have to take an off season. I had enough muscle to be competitive on the pro level. And I was like, cool, I got my pro card. I have nothing to lose. Like, I honestly was not expecting anything. Like, I was still high on getting my pro card. I was like, this is sweet. And so I got 3rd at my pro debut. And then Kim was like, okay, he was like ready. He's like, do another show. We're going to see if you can get qualified. And I did. I got qualified. And
Yeah.
I didn't know anything though. I like didn't even know I got my own like meet the Olympians table. Like people like on Instagram like, oh, I can't wait to show up and meet you. And I was like, where? Like at your booth. I was like, what booth? They're like, you get a booth. I was like, why do I get a booth? They're like, you're an Olympian, are you? I'm like, yeah, but I had no clue about how it was just so fast. I just was not, it was really fun and super grateful for that. Like it was very fast.
What was it like going from, because it sounds like you kind of didn't even fully understand like what was happening, because it kind of like you had the muscle that you built from, you know, being a track athlete, being a sprinter, that foundation was there. So you had the density. So did you get like after junior nationals or after that third place pro debut and first place win, did they give you any kind of feedback leading into the Olympia? Like what were you hearing from the judges?
I don't remember.
They're
I
like,
don't remember. No, I don't remember. I think, well, I know for my pro debut, I remember for whatever reason, they're like, you have to come in tighter. So we did that. And it showed like in the pictures. And I think the difference was about 3 weeks. So it was enough time to do whatever we needed to do. So I do remember that at my pro debut. But the Olympia qualification, I probably was so excited. It was a blur. I don't even remember what they told me. I'm sure they told me something. Yeah. I was like, okay, it sounds good. And I was just so excited. So I don't know.
oh my gosh.
I'm sure,
Sorry.
Yeah.
I'm sure you probably couldn't even like getting like pro card and then third place and then Olympia qualified and then Olympia, like that first year is like, holy crap, that's a year. Like, so was there any sort of like coming down from that, like really bad post-show blues or like, oh man, what am I going to do my next season? Like I gotta like pressure kind of thing.
Um, you know what? No pressure. I was just ready to take a break because it was so overwhelming. And I still was super new. I didn't really understand a lot of stuff until my actual full year of competing. I really didn't. I was like so lost. But I just went along with it. But yeah, it wasn't really, I think the next year it was more like post-show blues because it was like my full year as a pro and I actually like understood and everything. But it was just such a fast-paced year in 2021 that I don't think I was able to really settle into anything until the following year.
Right. I can only imagine.
Yeah.
So now, okay, so I'm just kind of like I'm like, I want to take her back to like this moment because I feel like it's so easy for it to just like hit you and come at you so fast. And then you're just like, what just happened? Like, this is the last, like from, you know, junior nats, winning pro card, third place pro debut, then you qualify for the Olympia, then it's the Olympia. And then it's just like, okay, so now we're doing this. So that was all 2021.
Yes.
And then, so what happened? So 2022, did you take some time off? Did you like jump right back into another season?
Yeah, so I did a couple shows. I did a couple shows. I think that they were like top 5. I didn't win any of them. I was ready to take a break because as I mentioned earlier, when I had that reverse, it was when like my body was just like, I did so many shows just like back to back. And I think I took 2 months off. Like, what is that? It was like nothing. So I did end up taking a full break. I think it was like 6 months, which really wasn't that long, but it was the longest since I started competing. And so that was good. This time right now is actually my longest break, but at that time it was, I did 2 shows. I think one was like 4th or 5th place, like both shows. One I got 4th, one I got 5th. And then I was like, I think I want to take a break. And Kim was like, okay, cool. So we took about 6 months off. And that led into last year. Yeah.
Okay, cool. Because I think you competed earlier this year,
Yeah.
time, right? And then now you've been off ever since. So where is your mentality at right now? Because obviously, like what made you decide, like, you know what, I think you did like 1 or 2 shows earlier this year.
I did 1 show I actually did 1 show this year. Last year I did 2. And then I got qualified the second show. Then I went to Olympia last year. And this year I did 1 show and then I took a break.
Okay. So
in March.
Okay, awesome. So what was the mindset with wanting to decide to take a break and maybe just kind of shut it down for the year? Like, what was like your and Kim's conversation like to set you up for next year? Or
Yeah.
I'm
only laughing because, yeah, okay, finish. I'll say it.
I want to really see kind of what kind of planning goes into this, because I think a lot of people see a lot of the girls that compete year after year trying to get that qualification and doing it, but they don't necessarily see, you know, that sometimes you guys do need a break. You know what I mean? Like whether, even if your body's fine, like sometimes you just got to like pour into other areas of your life. Sometimes
Yep.
you're like, you know what, I know I need to make some time, take some time to make the improvements I want to make. And, you know, three months isn't going to cut it.
Yep.
All right. Yeah. What was your kind of plan after the March show with Kim as to what you're going to do next?
Yeah. So it was a little out of the blue, which is why I was giggling, because he was not happy about it. Because like you said, there really wasn't a reason or rhyme. I just felt that I have been on go with competing since I started competing, and I have. And for someone who, I am older, and so I have just like other things that I've done in life. And competing I love, and I will continue to compete until I can no longer. However, I just have other interests, you know, as well. And so I felt I got 5th place earlier this year. My body was in a great spot. I felt good. But there was just other things, like it was really hard for me to tell Kim, because he was like, come on, there's all these shows, you know, and we can get qualified. And I was like, yeah, but you know, if I get qualified now and it's March or April, I can take a break, but then I'm gonna have to start Olympia prep again. And I really just wanted to just chill, honestly. And I told him that after like a month. He wasn't happy, but he's a great coach, and he understands that, you know, people have lives and they have other things that they want to do. So that was really it. We obviously keep in touch and stuff like that. But I know a lot of people were like, are you not gonna do another show? And you should do another show. And I was like, yeah, I didn't want to. My mind wasn't there. I wasn't upset. I wasn't anything, nothing. It was nothing. I just took time, and I was like, I really want to pour into my partner, my relationship, my business, my Monday through Friday job. I don't know, my dog. Like, I don't know. I just wanted to do other stuff, you know? It wasn't anything like dramatic. And I feel like people automatically think of the worst, like, is your health okay? Or like, is something going on? I'm like, no, nothing is going on. I just did the first show and it was great. And I was planning to do more shows, but after that show, I just simply was like, I'm just gonna chill. And this is the longest break. And I think honestly, this has been the most fulfilling off season I've had. So it's been wonderful, and I'm excited to compete again. But yeah, that was the reason why. We're also very like non-traditional, Kim and I, where I don't have a off-season plan. So
I
we
think
just
there's a lot
connect.
that are like that though. Like I think
Okay.
no, I would say I think Maureen is like that too. Like she said, like I think some people have asked her in interviews, like, do you follow a meal plan in her off season? She was like, no. Like she just makes sure that she's eating healthy and keeping her composition like in a good spot. Like
Yeah.
all of you guys are paying attention to that, because you're like, you know, you don't want to go into prep and have to lose 35, 40 pounds.
Oh God.
Yeah.
Yes.
Because that just makes it, we've all 3 of us have had preps like that. And it's just like, it sucks the soul out of you a little
It
bit.
does. I
It
know.
die inside just slightly. Just a little
Yeah.
Yeah, just your soul just starts just in fragments leaving your body. But I think it's really important people to hear that, because I mean, obviously I'm not going to ask you your age if you don't want. I'm 35. So I understand that feeling of like, okay, like you know, I have other things. Like I have my coaching clients. I also have another full-time career that I have. I'm married. I also have a dog. And I think it's, when you're on that kind of wheel of prep, especially as a pro, you've got the Olympian, then the Arnold, and then to qualify, it's just like, you're never really out of it. You're just, maybe cardio is reduced, food comes up.
Yep.
But prep is so much of your life, like just meal prepping and
It is.
nailing your supplements and planning everything. And I think people undervalue just the mental break of just not having to obsess over every little thing, because you have to when you're in prep. That's just the way it is. And doing it year after year, you're just like, your mind gets so exhausted.
It does. I know. And that was my thing. Like, I just wanted to go to my nephew's birthday and like have a slice of pizza. And I'd be like, I can't have it. Like, just the small things. And I'm really big on friends and family and those relationships. So I've never was a person to like hibernate during prep. Luckily, I, you know, still do things and stay busy. But it was always cut short, I felt, just because I'm like, hey, I got to go do cardio. I got to meal prep. I got to do things, or I'm grouchy and I'm tired. I really don't want to be here in the first place. So I just wanted to just not deal with that. And I think, you know, I have such a great support system with my family and friends. and they love when I compete. You know, they're always at the shows if they can make it. But I just wanted to just like hang out. Yeah, that's really it.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
I think it's really important to note for people that like you didn't have a specific reason for stopping, and that you do have things outside of your life other than just bodybuilding. Whereas like, you know, even as a pro, like we can feel like there's pressure to like, this has to be a part of my life all the time. And like, I've definitely felt that. But at the same time, this has been a really cool eye-opening experience for me in that I can still be like on point with my stuff, but I can still live a life normally too. And that's just like relationship with food, being able to just be like, okay, well, I know the things I got to do just to do it, but like I can just chill a little bit too. And like, you don't have to have a reason to not compete, because I think for women, there's such a big emphasis on like, well, they just got to compete all the time. But it's like, well, when do you make progress, you know, and just mentally, like you said, now you're excited to compete again versus you were just kind of like, okay, you know, like, and you got to have that drive for it. Otherwise you don't appreciate it as much, you know? And I think that that's important too. And that I think even with new competitors, they're like, well, I got to compete and I got to do this show specifically. And it's like, there's no timeline, dude. Like, you can just compete. There's always going to be shows. Like, don't try to push or rush something because you're probably not going to work out that great.
Yep. Yeah. And the stage will always be there. I mean, I think there's a lot of examples where people take time off and then they come back and things are just like they were before when they were competing. You know, that's the great thing about the sport. You know, you can really compete for a while if you do it the right way, though, right? You have to stay healthy long term for longevity. You know, that's the key. And so, like you mentioned, taking that time off and building or whatever, because that's another topic I think too, is where people want to compete over and over again. And then they honestly don't look that great because their body is not, they haven't taken the time. And it's like, it's okay, breathe. You're not missing anything. You have FOMO, I know, but just like do the work that needs to be done so then you can actually get to where you want to be when it's time to compete. It just takes time, you know, and everyone's different.
Yeah. And you can still be involved in show stuff and everything like that while not competing. Like, I know I help out with shows around here. I mean, we all coach, so like that's a way to do it too for our own athletes and stuff, to be involved. So that way you never kind of like lose that, but it's still there and you're still a part of it.
Carolyn, what were you going to ask?
Yeah, no, it was one of the other things too, is that our life does not change whether we're in prep or not prep. But I remember in my last prep, I was telling Amanda and Kayla this, the one thing that I missed doing was participating, because yes, you can go to your nephew's birthday, but you're present, but you're not participating, you know?
Yes.
You're mentally not really there because you're thinking about, oh, I need to go home. I need to go to bed or do something. And that's what takes it out on a lot of people and why they end up quitting prep or quitting competing completely. It's because they're never present with their loved ones. And so that's something that I'll do better on. And I will say, like at the pro level, there's a lot more pressure because one, like you said, you already have the muscle mass versus amateurs. They're always having to build up to that. So there is almost a carrot at the end of the stick for amateurs because they're like pro card or getting that level of muscle so that they can become pro. But then once you're a pro and you can compete. So there's more pressure to do that year round because you're already at that level. And yes, there's always make, but not as much in bikini because we're just constantly refining what we already have.
Yeah. Valid point. Yeah.
Have you gotten, so your last show in March or maybe your Olympia last year, I'm always just interested to see like what the judges are saying. Did you get feedback from any of those shows? Like, did they want you to just kind of keep bringing what you're bringing? Or did they give you anything to kind of work towards for the next time you compete?
Yes. So I feel like for the Olympia last year, I think the feedback was something with my legs. I mean, she said more legs. She said more legs. I think Sandy said more legs, which Kim and I thought was interesting because she would judge me on an NPC and she'd be like, don't do any legs. Don't do any legs. So, you know, things are always changing. So I think she said more legs. When I did my show in March, it wasn't the leg feedback. The legs were okay. I think that was, again, coming in tighter. I think it was like it was a food thing, like a peaking thing.
I was going to say, I feel like you guys, like with bikini, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, because you're obviously in the mix way more as a pro, like seeing Sandy and Tyler and Attila and all these judges, but it seems like from what I've heard, especially from Sandy, is that that right bikini conditioning is going to be a little different for everybody. Like some girls, they like to see a little bit fuller, and some girls, they prefer to be a little bit tighter on that side.
Yes. Oh my goodness. Yes. For me, they like me to be like sucked in. Like I need to be like sucked in, you know? And then I see other girls, you know, when you see people backstage, right? Like you see them backstage and you're like, oh, that's interesting. Like she's either really conditioned or she's not super conditioned. It's very interesting. But anytime I come in just a tad softer than I would, Sandy's like, no, you got to come in tighter. So they like to see me like super sucked in. We realize that, yes. So that's a great question. But they like me like really, 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 really like, yeah. But it was interesting because then
no, go ahead. Sorry.
I was gonna say in NPC, I was like borderline too big for I really got a lot of feedback, like she had a lot of muscle. So we were at that time trying to bring me in soft, like really soft, because I was basically like, they didn't say too much, but basically I was too much for bikini at that level. So we were feeding me. I was like looking at myself like, is this really like this is, and I got a pro card just like that, super soft. And that's just what they wanted to see me like. The pro level, they kind of turned it up a notch and switched a little bit. And they want me like super, not necessarily super conditioned, but I don't like, you know, the thin layer of water, they want that just like that. So they're always like, your conditioning is fine, but we just need you like tighter a little bit. And I was like, okay. So it's a lot of it has to do with food, with peaking for me.
I was going to say I feel like that's what it is for a lot of girls. Cause you'll see, especially it's so hard when you're watching like a live stream or pictures. It's not the same. Cause I've seen pro shows in person. I go to the Olympian, Arnold every year. And then what people are saying they saw, I'm like, that's not how they looked it's the same thing for the men. I feel like it's just so different. But I feel like girls were like, oh, we saw them, you know, compete 3 or 4 weeks ago. Like if you're, you know what you're looking at, you can see the differences, especially someone like Ashley Kaltwash is a good example because she competes all the time. And we've seen her fuller, softer, and then seen a lot tighter. And there is a difference in how she the overall, her balance, her proportion, how she moves. And I feel like this is where girls get so confused because like you just don't know what the judges are looking for, and I'm like, what you do?
And it's also sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you.
No, go ahead. You're the one that we can hear from.
Well, I was gonna say the judges also play a huge role in that. So you know, certain judges like to see certain people a certain way, which is interesting. So I see why there's confusion, but on the pro level, you get to kind of know what certain judges like Sandy likes me really sucked in. I could probably go in front of another judge, maybe not as sucked in, and they probably wouldn't have the same feedback. So it's very interesting how that works with the judges. Obviously, when you're at the Olympia, it's a different ball game. But when you're doing the local shows, there's a lot more variety of opinion from judges.
Yeah, 100%. And I think that bikini look is gonna look different depending on the physique. Like, for example, like the example of like Jen, Dory, and Maureen definitely come in softer and fuller, right?
Yes. Yes.
You don't see them like crazy strider, whereas like you see, you know, Ashley, for example, she does come in leaner than those top girls too. But everybody's skin and how their body moves and how their muscle sits and how their body fat is dispersed is so different.
Yes.
Sometimes for you to fit that criteria, you know, like for me, for example, just speaking for myself and just what I've heard from, you know, Sandy and Tyler, and just knowing my own body is like, I just unfortunately carry quite a bit of cellulite in my leg, which a lot of women do. But even when I'm a few pounds off stage weight, there'll be a little bit of it. So I have to get it all off. Like I have to get very lean, whereas some people hold body fat a little bit different and they better, rounder, and softer. So I think it's good to hear that from a pro too, that you guys like are trying to always like try new things and nail it. And it's like, you hear different things and judges have preferences, but man, that's gotta be hard to know.
Well, it's challenging because last year is a really good example. I got 6th place my first show. That next weekend, it was the same judge panel, and I got qualified for the Olympia. So it's very interesting how things work out that way, where you jump from 6 to 1 and you're going to the Olympia. And we all here like know that you can tweak stuff in a week, but what are you really tweaking that much of in just 5-6 days, right?
Yeah.
So that's also interesting how that worked out, you
Sometimes
know?
I wonder, like, is it the weird lighting at the show that's making everybody look a certain way? Is there, I
Yeah.
mean, it depends on like who's at the show too, like who you're standing next to affects it, but
That's a lot. Yeah, that has a lot to do with it
I
too.
was just
Yeah.
gonna say that, like who, like the mix of people and like what the look is for the day, you know, because
Mhm.
even in figure too, that happens where, you know, some girls can be super shredded or it can be a softer, bubblier look, but it just kind of depends on the mix of people. Cause like
Yeah.
when I did my run in 2021, junior USAs, I beat a girl, and then junior nationals 4 weeks later, she beat me, and she was like bigger and bubblier but softer. And so it was
Mhm.
kind of like, what were they looking for necessarily? So it
Yeah.
kind of depends on the day, I feel like. And so it's good to know that bikini's that way too.
Yeah.
oh God.
It's like a toss up. You're flipping a coin.
Well, it's tough too, because in bikini, it's, you know, figure, there's more competitors in bikini than figure at most shows, just because like, you know, it's just a bigger division and that we carry less muscle, right? So more people, it's more appealing, this, that, and the other. So you've got like sometimes 30, 40 girls, and the
Mhm.
25, 30 of them are all 10 out of 10, phenomenal. Like most girls now, they're nailing their peaks pretty well. Like there might be subtle things here and there, but you know, everyone's got a beautiful suit. Everyone's got, you know, great makeup and their posing is pretty good. So it's just like these like 1% differences.
Mhm.
And then it's crazy. Sometimes I look at these shows, I'm like, I would not, sometimes it's more obvious than others, but especially at the Olympia, I'm like, I would not want to be a judge.
It's crazy. I know. Yeah, it's very, very impressive because everyone is just dialed. And it's like you said, like they're at that point, like really just nitpicking at what they can because they have to, honestly. Like not everyone can win. There's only one winner. So you know, that's how it goes.
So what's your mindset then? Like, are you planning on competing next? You don't have to say if you don't know, but are you planning on
Yeah.
competing in 25?
Yes, I'm competing next year. I just don't know when or where because I don't think the list is out. I don't have any, and if it is, I have not looked. But I'm competing.
I think all of Kayla, are you plan on still competing next year?
I hope so. I think so. I think so. I think I'm gonna be big enough finally. My little
I know.
self in the pro figure division. So
Yeah.
but it probably wouldn't be until like I'm thinking fall, like late summer, early.
Later in the year. Okay.
Yeah, just because I have another growth phase to do. So we'll see.
Sweet.
Yeah. Yeah, I probably will for sure compete next year. I'm ready. I just don't know, you know, exactly when and see, you know, if we can get back to the yo. So yeah.
That's so exciting. And I mean, so just kind of like shifting gears a little bit, if you don't mind talking about like some kind of, you'd mentioned like pouring into other areas of your life. So it sounds like you have a full-time job outside of just competing. So you do for work, like what are some other things about you outside of just bodybuilding that you were kind of pouring into and giving some more time to?
Yeah. So I am in architecture and design. So I do talent. Well, I do I'm not as cool, like I'm not an architect, but I do recruiting. So I am a director for recruiting. So I do that Monday through Friday. And then I run a practice. It started off in person personal training. And then I was like, I can't do all of that in LA. It's like working Monday to Friday, then meeting people in person. It was just too much. So I moved to online with my partner who does personal training and is a massage therapist. So we joined forces. And so I just do everything virtual. I am a licensed mindset coach. So I was doing that as well on the side, but that wasn't really a burden because it was virtual. I didn't meet people in person. A lot of my clients were online. So we just collaborated and came together. And so I do that online. It's a lifestyle. It's not competing related at all. I'm not sure I'm ready to take the leap into coaching competitors. Kudos to you guys for doing that. But all my clients are lifestyle. And so that's what I do. I have a dog that I'm super obsessed with. She's a little mutt, small one, super cute. Yeah, I love her so much. I rescued her 8 years ago. Time flies.
God.
Yeah, she's getting older. And I don't know, I just eat. I'm such a big foodie. I love food so much. And I've been like that since forever. Like I just love food. I don't know, I'm kind of boring, I feel like.
Well,
Yeah,
I want to
workout,
ask
I
about
work.
the mindset coach thing. I don't think that's boring at all. So how, okay, so sorry, I'm like, my mind's going in like three different places. So mindset coach, are you most of your clients for that competitors, or is it completely unrelated to bodybuilding?
It's well, it first started off not related to any competing or anything like that. But I shifted the focus more in a niche where it was anyone, female or male, but mainly females who wanted to focus on their health. Because as we know, mindset, mental goes with health. So that's my demographic. It's usually women probably going into their 40s that are starting to work out for the first time and need help in other areas of their life, mainly with the mindset. Yeah. So it
What do
did
you,
start off,
oh no, go ahead. Sorry.
I was going to say, it started off kind of just like out, like just a variety of people because I really didn't know. And then I realized I'm like, okay, like this is who I'm attracting and this is actually what I can help people with because I have experience in it. So then I tailored it to that demographic. Yeah.
That's incredible. And I think that's actually, you should be a competitor coach, let me tell you, because if you knew some of the people that coach competitors, you'd be like, oh, we'll be fine. But so such a key, I mean, mindset is really, it just in general of life, it really is everything. What do
Yeah.
you feel like, especially for, since most of your clients are lifestyle, especially, like
Mm-hmm.
40s, maybe moms are trying to balance
Mm-hmm.
and everything else. What have you found like there's some common underlying tones with a lot of these women that they're kind of like the obstacles that they're facing, and what do you find yourself kind of saying to them or handling the most with them? Like I'm trying to think, like I've got a couple clients that are parents, and I'm sure I know Kayla does too, that are lifestyle,
Mhm.
and just some like really good words of wisdom or things that you've come across with them.
Yeah, I've noticed the most common denominator is people, they don't take time for themselves. And that can mean, I don't know, I mean, just simply sitting by yourself for 30 minutes. And obviously, I don't have children, but I have a lot of nieces and nephews, and I see how challenging that can be. Um, but I think it starts with a lot of reflection and spending time by yourself with just any type of mindset change that you want to do. And I think that's very hard for a lot of people because, life is busy. You have stuff to do. But that's the common denominator that I see mainly. And, a large portion of them, I just give very transparent feedback and say, you have to make time and let's, put a plan together that can get you to set at least starting with like 30 minutes by yourself, which some of them are like 30 minutes, I barely have 10, so working up towards that 30 minutes to set time for yourself to reflect. Because it's very hard to change anything about your mindset if you don't have the time, right? So when you're busy, everything is like super fast. But I think that's probably the biggest thing is taking time to themselves and reflecting on whatever it is or whatever goals that they have.
I think that's probably incredibly empowering for them and just kind of giving them that permission. Because I think a lot of women, especially women that are moms, it's like you're driven
Yeah.
by service to your children,
Mhm.
family. And that's just a huge part of being a woman in a lot, even if you don't have kids, like we just,
Yeah.
we love doing things for others. Not
It's
everybody.
natural. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a natural thing just to kind
Mhm.
of be helpful, be supportive. So it's almost feels like that time for yourself, there can be some guilt involved there. I think
Mhm.
like I should be giving every single spare second to this thing, whether it's
Yeah.
a job or a family. And I think a lot of women can also, or not just women, people, they can feel like they're victimized by their lives, even
Yeah.
though they've created their lives. So it's like, I
Mhm.
don't have 10 minutes. And you're like, well, wait, this is your life. You can create whatever you want. And I think a lot of people are like,
Mhm.
oh, I can't.
Yeah. Well, and then and two, like as the conversation goes on, it's like they realize that if they don't make a shift or change, that they can't continue to give, right? Because they're just like worn out. So they realize like, okay, well, I actually have to do this because if not, I can't be a better mother. I can't be a better partner. I can't be, whatever if I'm already struggling now. So sometimes that lights a fire, under their butt really to make those necessary changes because it's affecting them and it'll eventually start affecting every other aspect of their life if it hasn't already.
Yeah, 100%.
It's,
Sorry, go
it's
ahead.
kind of like that, like the cliche saying, like you can't pour from an empty cup. but
Yeah.
it's so true. And like I've
Yeah.
told my clients that a lot. And I'm like, hey, like if you don't fill up your cup, you can't give to anybody else. So
Yeah.
you're just literally just taking up parts of you and just giving it away then. And that's not cool either. So plus like being, you know, as a mom, like being an example for your kids or your family and stuff. And like, I don't know, I have a lot of people, not a lot, but I have a few people whose families just aren't so supportive. So it's like, how do you
Yeah.
find that support? And then like you as the coach start to become that. So it's like, you know, working past the excuses part too is really hard sometimes of like, well, I have this and this and this and that. And like, and that trying to get them to come around to that mindset is different. So how do you get them past like working through like all the excuses too?
Well, it's hard, but it's really just setting up our sessions geared around that. And there's different exercises that I have them do. Some of them done on their own, and a lot of it is very similar to, you know, coaching for like nutrition and stuff like that. Is holding them accountable, because I can't do everything for them. So they're going to have to take the time to do it on their own and make that time. But usually the sessions are tailored to each person. And we just do the exercises together. And then that next session, when we meet virtually, hopefully they've done their exercise and see if they've had, you know, a light bulb switch on or any, you know, good things happen. But that's really, it is like it's definitely not a therapist at all. But it kind of has similarities, you know, when it comes to like the talking and stuff like that. Any coaching, you know, position I feel like is very similar to that aspect too.
Yeah, I think a good, and you probably, I would imagine something I do with my clients a lot, and you probably do this with yours especially, is I think it's really hard for us as human beings to separate our view of ourselves, like how you see yourself and how other people actually perceive you. Like, how do you actually occur to other people? Because there's like a lady I work with who's kindest ever. She has 5 kids, they're all adults, but she's just very a yes person. Like she hates saying no. And then she just gets run ragged. And what happens, and I work with her, right? And we're also friends because I care for her, but she ends up taking on more than she should. And then it gets to a point where everyone else around her doesn't want to ask her anything or even like text her for a question, right? Like, hey, how would you go about doing this thing? Because she's always kind of overwhelmed and frazzled. And she'll say yes to people that maybe she should have that boundary of like, hey, you know, I've got this that I'm taking on. These are my commitments I have. And in order for me to fulfill these commitments 100%, I have to say no to that. And then you know, when we started doing this at work of like, everyone told her like, we love you. You're so amazing, but you're always kind of frazzled. And I feel bad. I feel like I'm bothering you anytime I talk, like I call you, I feel like I'm bothering you. And she was like, oh my God, I had no idea that I want to be available to you guys. And then the owner of the company's like, this is why we do this. And that's all how my clients, like, they think someone's perceiving, they're like, you should just ask, like, when we're in conversations or when we're in our relationship, like, how do I occur to you? Like, how am I presenting to you? It doesn't mean you take it for everything it is, but if you're asking people you trust that you're close with, like family, your partner, you work really close with and you respect and trust them, like, hey, how do I occur to you? And a lot of people be pretty surprised because it's something that's pouring from
it's true.
They're like, you think you're Superwoman, and really everyone's just like don't touch her, she's gonna explain what I mean.
Yes, totally. Yep, it's true.
Have the rebound effect too, because one, you're supporting everyone around you, including your family, especially. And then once it comes to take care of yourself, well, there's really nothing left. So when she comes to you, Amanda, it's like, okay, now she's going to have to try to please you and continues to forget about herself. So it's just in this endless cycle. So maybe that's something also, because for each of our clients as well, they give back so much to others. I think we end up attracting those type of people too as clients because they want to give and give, but they've never given back to themselves, which is the exact reason why they need help. So
yeah, that's true. And what is that? I'm gonna totally butcher it, but when you're on an airplane and what are the things that fall out of the ceiling? Those things that yes, they say put it on yourself first and then anyone else. second.
Yeah.
So you have to take care of yourself first to help other people. You know what I mean? It
Mhm.
applies literally everywhere in life, you know?
Yeah.
Mhm.
So if you pass out, then the kid
Yeah.
probably, or like the person that's not as capable, it's like, what's going to happen to them?
Yeah.
No, it's a
Yeah.
really good example because that's exactly how it is. And I think a lot of those people, they just don't realize until they're years down the line and they've kind of run themselves ragged, but they're so used to feeling that way that they're like, then it becomes like when they are doing something for themselves, it feels very weird.
Yeah.
Feels
Yeah.
wrong, feel some shame around it. They feel like they're taking away from others around them when really they don't see is like you pour in yourself for a couple of weeks, a couple of months. Everyone else around you is experiencing a much better you. Like they get to
Yes.
experience you, not drained you.
Mhm.
Yeah. And I think that has a little bit to do with, self-esteem too. I think that comes with time. Again, like taking time for yourself, reflecting. But I think a lot of it is self-esteem and kind of like speaking up but that's, it's so many variables and factors that go into that too.
Do you get a lot of people pleasers in that sense?
Yes. Yes,
I would say
absolutely.
that sounds like a big people pleaser thing. And
Yeah.
someone who is a people pleaser.
I'm pointing to you, Kayla.
Everyone point at Kayla. I can like attest to a lot of this because you feel guilty about taking time or saying no to things because you just always had to, because you feel like you always have to say yes because you need to make people happy. But it's more so about making yourself happy. And at first, people might honestly be like, what? They just told me no. Like they never say no.
Yeah.
This, like I've experienced that. And it's hard. It's really, really hard. But it comes with any sort of change that you're trying to make, whether it's to get into on the stage, to just lose some
Yeah.
weight or something, is just, and no matter what, it's going to be hard. So you just have to get through that part and it gets so much easier. And you just, no matter what your goal is, whether it's changing your mindset or whatever, you just feel more empowered after that because you're like, oh, hey, like I can do this. So,
Yeah.
I think for anybody like that should be a really big thing to go for.
Well,
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
it's knowing that pouring into yourself doesn't take away from the others around you at all. Like it's
Yeah.
not like you taking time for whatever it is. Maybe it's just like getting a massage that day. Maybe it's just having 30 minutes of peace with your coffee or tea in the morning and just not having your phone going off and people needing things from you. Doing that for yourself is not taking away from those around you whatsoever.
Yeah.
It may at first be a little bit like they're just used to that version of you. Like they're used to that.
Mhm.
That's why to just let them know, like, hey, I am going to start doing this. And I bet most people are like, oh, finally, we've been wanting you to take care of yourself. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah.
Do it.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. So I'm going to switch gears a little bit because I'm curious because we never went over this. But Carolyn, how did you and Ariel become friends and how did you guys meet? Because you guys are on opposite ends of the country.
I know.
Because I was like, wait a minute, it was 2021, and I definitely went to your booth, and
Yeah.
we took a selfie then.
Yeah. Wait. Yeah.
Sourdough, was it? I don't even know because we go back and forth about sourdough.
Yeah. True sourdough for real, for life.
I'll join this conversation. I make sourdough every week.
It makes it, yeah.
Yeah,
Oh my gosh. Wish you were my neighbor.
also because I used to live in Santa Monica, so
Yeah.
Oh, that's right, you did.
and
Yes.
I don't know if it was during that time, but that was way before Ariel ever competed because I was in 2016 was when I left California, but I always go back. So it's like
I think, I feel like it was like
somewhere in
Instagram. Yeah, I don't know. But I saw you last year.
yes.
Right.
So
Okay.
went to the 2023 Olympia.
Yes.
And
Yeah.
then that was your second Olympia.
Mhm.
Your
Mhm.
booth then as
Yes.
well.
I was much more in tune. I knew what was going on.
Yeah.
Like you came down from the like, what is happening?
I
I
know
was
why.
prepared. Yes. Yes.
Oh, that's amazing.
Yeah.
So basically Carolyn was fangirling and you guys became friends.
We became buddies. Yeah. Besties. Yes.
I just have to pick on you.
I remember like I've gone to a couple Olympias with Carolyn. This is what I love about Carolyn is so the meet the athletes. Like there's obviously we all have you know, well, I guess us as amateurs, I don't know how it is in the pros. I'm sure you guys are like, there's a group of you that are friends and things like that, but we all have like
Yeah.
girls that we look up to that are like, you know, you're always rooting for, and you just, you know, love
Hmm.
and you love like, just, there's something you relate to about them. The meet the athletes, I'm always like, I feel so dumb because I'm like, what am I going to go up to and be like, I think you look amazing. Okay. Like, I think the only athlete I've ever gone up to at that was Phoebe Hagen. Um,
Oh,
because I think I'd like communicate with her on DM a couple times. Not that she knew who I was, but I at least had like something to say besides
yeah.
like, I just feel like we're all in body, but I feel so weird. Like, I love your body and you're just
We're
so cool.
yeah. I will say that was yeah. It was I'm like very when it comes to that. I'm also the same. Like I still. I mean, it doesn't. They don't even have to be Olympians. Like I just connect with people. Doesn't matter NPC pros. Who cares? Like for me, like people inspire you in a different way. But that's something I still have to get used to. Is that like what you're saying? Like when people come up to you and take pictures, or like people from different countries, they're like when they come to Olympia and they're like, "Oh my god, I follow you," and it's like I'm just so awkward. I just got to get better at that. I'm just like, "Oh my god, yay!" I'm like, "What do I say?" Oh.
I know, and that's why I feel like you guys are probably like doing your best to be like really friendly and like take a picture. But I can only like imagine that you're like, okay, but like, what do you don't know this person? Like we both, it's like, yeah, you relate on the fact that we both are, you know, love bodybuilding and they know who you are and you know nothing about them. So that's got to
Yeah.
feel so strange.
Well, for me, I guess because I just see it, I don't, I'm like, it's just me. Like, I'm not really like, it's just so awkward for me. I'm glad that I inspire people. I do love that. And I just feel so loved and supported all the time. But I'm like, I'm just like you, I'm just like regular. Like, I'm not Beyonce. Like, stop, I don't know.
It's funny when you bring
It's
it up.
so
Like it was when you brought up about Phoebe as well, is that like every Olympia, I always see Max. And I'm like, so how you doing? And he's like, it's whatever. And I'm like, it's cool. Kind of cool we're here, right? And then it's like I'm just talking to Max on the side, and then we just like move on with our lives. But it's like it's one of those like annual meetups. It's like, hey guys, it's good to see you. All right, let's go to
Yeah.
I feel like that's definitely the cool thing about like professional bodybuilding and like amateurs is that like professional bodybuilders are just people too. Like there's nobody else that's different. Like I've seen, for example, one of the biggest C-Bum. I've seen him present at a conference that wasn't even related to bodybuilding, and he was just a normal person. He and Phil Heath were there actually, and it was great. It was super cool. Phil Heath and his wife came to the little get together afterwards, and like everyone was just talking to them like normal people, and like you know, and I think a lot of us, you know, when I was an amateur, I mean, even still now, like I look up to other pros as like, oh my God, they're like a celebrity to me, you know, just because they like have done such amazing things and like what they've gone through and stuff like that. But, you know, I can only imagine how awkward it also feels to just be like, oh, I'm just like so and so. Like, yeah.
Just regular. Yeah. 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 It's definitely sweet. It's definitely eye-opening, with having that, amount of love and stuff like that. But yeah, it's just like these are regular people, doing their thing, what they like to do, what they enjoy. Yeah.
I love that. I think what can happen, because just knowing from myself, and that's why like I should go up to pros sometimes, but I feel like I have this understanding of like I said, like I know what they put out online. Like I know information about them based on what they put out, and they know nothing about me. But I think what happens is there's something about that person. And a lot of times it's not bodybuilding related. It's just something maybe it's how they communicate. Maybe it's a mindset thing that they put out on their Instagram, or maybe they shared something they were struggling with that was something, that amateur really struggled with, and they can just relate to that. And then you see that, and then you see that person doing what you want to do one day. And that just becomes like, just like an inspiration, or, almost like
Yeah.
or without being a mentor, if that makes sense. It's like no contact, but you're
Mhm.
like, man, that girl, like the things she would say just resonate with me so much. And if she can do it,
Yeah.
like so I think that can happen where people just have this connection to you guys because of that. And then you're left with like, oh my God, this connection is like, I'm so happy that it's like, I also don't know you, but I could see, I would imagine with time, it gets easier to navigate with that. But I think that's I mean, for any of us, like I've been watching this sport since 2018, and there are pros that have just moved in a way that really resonated with me. And I
Yeah.
see them and you're just like, favorite.
Yeah, yeah. And there's nothing wrong with that. I'm just being like kind of dramatic, but it's, meaning like it is, if you're not, I guess if you're not used to it, that kind of attention, it can be very awkward. But I also connect with people like very easily. And I have so many internet girlfriends that I have not met. And if they lived in LA or I lived where they live, we would be like besties. And that is one of the times when you can meet people. A lot of people go to Olympia. And that's like the one time where you can see everyone in one place, and meet them if you haven't met them ever. Like I literally have talked to girls since I started competing and I've never met them. They're all on Instagram and it's phenomenal, but I really wish I could meet them. Some of them are like in Australia, just like, it's really like and that's I guess a segue maybe, that the sport brings so many relationships. Like I have met so many awesome people. That I probably would never met if I never competed.
It's so amazing because I think like, and here's the thing, like you guys all do such an incredible job. Like I've never like walked past a pro that was just like being really off-putting. I think you guys all navigate it so well. And I think like, thank God we can have, the internet and Instagram to connect us. Cause can you imagine if there was no, like, would this
I know
even be what, like, would anything be what it is? And it's like, we get to all engage and make friends, and it doesn't matter if you're, like you said, pro, amateur, whether you don't compete at all, you just love body, you love fitness or weightlifting. But like the social media gives us the tools to actually have a community. And it's so cool. Like just, I'm like, I'm talking to a 2-time Olympian right now. Like how cool is that? With 2 of my best friends. It's like, holy shit, like this is so cool.
And we're all in 4 different time zones, by the way. Like we do this every week in 3 different time zones. And now Ariel's in the 4th time zone. So like, the way that we can get together and do this is just super cool. And just, I think it goes to show one, like humility and like being humble, as a pro, and just being like, I'm nothing special, where I think some people do take that and be like, well, I'm a pro now, so like I'm something really special. And it's like, no, like there's a lot of people that look up to you. Like, you should set a good example and everything, and I think that's a big part of it too, is just that of like, just because you're this different status doesn't mean anything's really changed. Competition just gets harder.
Yeah, it really does, that part. Yeah.
I got my ass whooped my first mojo. So yeah, I felt that.
Okay, but that was kind of not totally your fault though.
Yeah, that's true.
We need to go into it, but yeah, that wasn't.
We won't go there.
We won't go there, but that wasn't all you. That was, you were fine and not so much. Yeah. But
no, it's awesome though. Like super, super cool. And it's really cool that you came on here and to talk to us today. Like, thank you for taking the time for that. And I know all of us are going to be going to the Olympia next year, because me and Carolyn missed it this year. So there's no way I'm missing it.
Yay. Fingers crossed I'll be there, hopefully.
Girl, you'll
make it happen.
You're so actually, are we on for 20 more minutes, or I don't want to take up all her time if she has to go.
Yeah, I scheduled it for like longer just in case, so that way we have the time blocked. But if you have to go, we can certainly wrap this up.
No, go for it. Yeah.
Okay.
Right.
So
ask away.
one question I wanted to ask is, and I know you have that kind of athletic foundation, like you were a sprinter and had some of that muscle built, but what does your training look like now? Like I know bikini is very like shoulders, glutes, a little bit of back, but what does your training look like? You don't have to go into like every single detail. Obviously that would take forever, but just kind of what's your mindset around your training? Are there things you're focusing on, things you're staying away from?
Yeah. Maintenance right now. It's maintenance. Just maintaining the muscle that I have. I feel like I have a very like traditional split with glutes and shoulders. Nothing spectacular.
That's what works. Basics work.
Yeah, I keep it simple. I don't really do too much. I do lift heavier. I tend to lift heavier. I think it's very dependent on how your body responds. Like I know, a lot of bikini girls may steer away from squats, and how I mentioned my feedback was legs, which is ironic. I do squats and stuff like that. I love to do a lot of like deadlifts and, I really love to like lift stuff, barbell, free weights. Yeah, I mean, it's very traditional training, nothing out of the normal. But definitely the goal is to maintain, like just keep what I have. The feedback was not to get bigger, smaller, nothing. It was just keep things as is. So yeah.
No, I think that's actually, and you answered that beautifully, because we all three of us know a lot of our clients that are newer, they want a new training program every 8 to 10 weeks, or
Oh yeah.
they want all this fancy stuff. And I'm like, you guys don't understand. Like if there's a movement that's not feeling good, that's causing discomfort or something like that, of course, switch it out. But I'm like, a lot of these girls are doing the same movements for years and years. And they're just, even if you're maintaining, you're still doing these same movements. You're not doing all this, you know, you might throw in some fun stuff here and there, but the basics work, and they work over time.
Yes, like it's pretty boring day in, day out, do the same stuff. You know, people are like, what do you do for your glutes? What do you do for your glutes? And I'm like, I do the same thing you do. I do hip thrusts. It's like the only difference is the foundation, right? And I tell them, I'm like, it's, you know, because like, well, I want glutes like yours. And I was like, it just took time. You know, it's one of those things that it didn't happen overnight. Like I've been training forever, literally forever. And I said, so as long as you keep at it, your glutes will, I mean, it'll be the same thing. It just takes time. Like, you know, genetics, you know, that's a thing too. But for the most part, if you stick with just the basic stuff, it can get boring at times, but you got to keep it spicy, you know, keep it interesting.
Yeah. 100%. That's why I try to tell girls, I'm like, you guys, your squats, some kind of hip thrust, glute drive movement, dead, like RDLs, a split squat or Bulgarian lunge movement.
Yes.
Like that's your bread and butter.
Yep.
Well, and I think I forgot what coach was on Instagram talking about this, but they were saying that bikini girls they don't train as hard as they should. And I was like, yes, like, thank you for posting that, because I think a lot of bikini girls think they should, and there's nothing wrong. I use 10-pound dumbbells, 15, like it's more about the variety, but I think some girls are scared to train hard. Like, I'm like, okay, if you do squats, your legs are not going to blow up big. I promise you. I wish it was that easy. Girl, I wish it was that easy.
You know,
like,
how
do
long
your squats
to blow up my lower body, man.
I think that's a good point, is to put in there, is like, especially at the amateur level, like girls need to lift heavy and lift hard. Like that's how you get dense muscle, because when you cut down in that weight, if you don't have muscle density there, it's just going to look like a melted candle. Like you're not going to look tight. And with bikini, because you still have to get super lean. And that's another misconception, is that bikini just doesn't have to get lean. You have to get lean because you have to look full, being fully relaxed, basically. Like at least in figure, like we pull our shoulders up and like we can flex our shoulders, and pull our lats out. Bikini, you're just basically standing there. Like there's no flexing involved. So I think girls don't understand, at least at the amateur level, like how hard they actually have to lift to still be competitive in bikini.
Yeah. People not doing that, or like, you know, Ariel, sorry if I'm saying your name wrong.
Ariel.
Okay, perfect. My stepsister is Ariel. That's why I'm like,
oh, okay.
But like, if you're just maintaining, obviously you're not going to be just like progressive overloading yourself. But if you've got to grow, and you like, maybe you don't have that foundation of being an athlete, you know, in high school or college, and you're kind of starting from ground zero, or maybe you have a little bit of, you know, foundation there, you got to get after it. And it's with bikini, I think the main difference is just selective movements. You know what I mean? Because we're not trying to grow like giant legs. I mean, you want your muscle, but there is more of a focus on certain body parts. You were creating that hourglass. But to the glutes that they want in the pros.
Wow.
Like you guys are standing, like at the Meet the Athlete, I say this, like you guys are standing there and your butt's just like up, like bam. I'm just like,
bubbly. It's
so impressive.
It's also notable with your background in sprinting and running, and with those muscle fibers, you're already building the foundation underneath yourself before even knowing it. But also the fact that I love is your current style of training in this off season is going back to the traditional of bodybuilding training, is just lifting heavy and doing the compound movements. Because you know, particularly with us who are ex-athletes, it's very easy to go into old habits. And for equestrians, everyone is either a marathoner or a yogi and do long endurance because they want to stay small. But instead, it's about, you know, with sprinting, you need those muscles in order to make those particular movements. So it's really exciting to hear, you know, this other side of bikini is that, hey, you know, she was already building before she even knew it.
Yeah. Yeah. I had no idea I was going to compete. So it's pretty interesting. Yeah. Especially when I was like the whole tie-in thing, I was like, what is that? Like when I started, and I was like, oh, that's interesting. And I literally was learning on the fly when I first started. I was like, I didn't even know these things existed. But it's funny how life works, you know? It was already in the plans for me, I guess.
That's awesome. So you guys heard it. Train hard, train heavy, and the basics freaking work.
Yep. Keep it simple.
Keep it simple. Yeah, like do training you love, but it's not about like reinventing the wheel. It's just people also don't realize too, it takes time to master these movements. Like you're not going to squat and then 6 months later, you're like a phenomenal 10 out of 10 squatter.
Yep.
Yeah.
Time, like, yes, you're progressing in weight, but you're also progressing in your execution. It takes years to get really good at these movements. And I think people don't realize that.
Yeah. I was talking about that the other day. I forgot who I was talking to, but I was like, my form, if I look back years ago, it was so horrible, embarrassing. I was like, I can't believe I was like actually doing that in the gym in front of people.
I've done
Oh,
the
I
same
found a
thing.
video of my RDLs from a few years ago, and I was like, I need to delete this. Because like someone's like, I'm gonna get like like someone's gonna find my phone and post it and be like, look at this bitch with her. It's so bad.
So funny. We all start somewhere, you know, we got to start somewhere. It's a part of it, but
It's very
you know.
true. And I think, you know, that's a good point to make, is that we all start somewhere, because like I've been doing this for 10 years. I started competing in 2015. And so like I also coached myself, so I didn't know what the heck I was doing, and just have to learn from it. And like
Yeah.
you look back, like we weren't perfect at everything. And I think that there's a lot of pressure, or people put pressure on themselves as like a new athlete to be like, I got to win my first show. And it's like, it happens for some people, but 90% of the time, it does not happen.
Yeah.
Like that. And like,
Right.
you will not
Yeah.
win your first show, but it's just a
Yeah.
matter of like getting on stage, seeing if you like it, and then improving from there. So it's like, yeah, just don't put that pressure on yourself to be perfect all the time,
Yeah. Yeah.
and be willing to
Good point.
learn.
That's really hard to do as a Virgo, though.
Yeah. Yeah.
Not be perfect.
Yeah. Well, yeah. I mean,
She's an August Virgo.
Yep.
I was September.
She's a September Virgo, yes.
Oh,
Yeah.
we're both Virgos then. Sweet.
Oh,
That works. Okay, yeah.
Are you guys
Feeling this by a
horoscope
day.
people? I never, not that it's bad. I like know about horoscopes, but I'm just like, I feel like I read those and I'm like, okay, I feel
yeah.
like
Well,
Why?
what's your sign?
Leo.
Oh, okay.
And a lot of people, they're like, I could tell. And I'm like, what do you
Yeah. Yeah.
I don't know that much about it. I just know
Leos are good people. They're good people. Yeah. The females are good people.
mean? I've heard that. Yeah, I've heard that.
The bells, I don't know.
You know what though? My husband and I are 4 days apart, and which is like same year. And he is the most incredible human being I've ever met in my life. Like I always joke that I don't deserve him, and we joke about all the time, but he is, and Kayla and Carolyn can attest to this. If there's someone who's going to redeem the Leos, it is that man.
Nice. Good. Good.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
Well, I know, sorry, Kayla, I know you guys are kind of hosting it. I just want to like not take up too much of her time, but I just want to say, and then of course, like you guys too, I just want to say thank you so much for taking the time and sharing like your experience and your wisdom and answering my million questions. I'm just like, I'm like, oh my gosh, I have so many things I want to dive into, but it was really cool to kind of get to know you outside of bodybuilding and then get to hear your history and how you got into everything. And just so you know, outside looking in, like, I think it can be, because like you said, you are just you, but you're doing such incredible work in the industry, and that there are so many girls that look up to you, so many girls. And even just by you being your authentic self, you have no idea the impact you're having on all these lives just by being your authentic self and just being true to you, sharing your story and taking that time away and showing girls like it's okay to pour into other areas of your life. Not only okay, you should do that if you feel like you need to. And it's just, it's so valuable. It's so important, and really, really appreciative of your time.
Yes, thank you. That was super sweet. Thank you. Yeah, I always love doing stuff like this. Yeah, bodybuilding it means a lot to me. So I love to just like do what I can, I call it community service, educating people, spreading the word. I'm pretty like active on my story. I'm like, honestly, really need to get better. I'm like so lazy when it comes to posting stuff, but I'm really active on my story with like information like this because I love to educate. And yeah, so thank you for having me. I appreciate it. Yeah.
Yeah, I
we
can
really
attest
appreciate
to
it.
I'm horrible at Instagram. I need to be better about it. I post my clients and then I'm like, no one gives a shit about me. I'm too tired.
Yeah, no, thank you so much, Ariel. It's really, really nice to have you on. But I guess I'll end with a little like formal, like where can everyone find you, all that kind of stuff, like if they want coaching, mindset work, anything like that.
Yeah. Ariel.Barley is my Instagram. It has my website on there. DM me. You can go through the website if you want. It has my email on there too. Yeah, that's where I'm at. I'm pretty active, pretty responsive on Instagram. Yeah.
Awesome.
Awesome.
Carolyn, any closing thoughts, words?
Go eat sourdough, and we'll see you next time. Yeah.
Carolyn's like, I'm existing, man.
Here.
All right.
Thank you so much for joining us. We greatly appreciate your time. And other than that, no, this is going to be really informative to many, competitors that are not only starting their journey, but then also in the deep end of it too, because we're at the end of the year. So I know a lot of like ourselves are planning for what's to come next year. So this is exactly the mindset I would love more athletes to have, is to know that bodybuilding is a part of our life. It's not our entire life. And we should enjoy every aspect of it while we can, because it's very short.
Sandy says that. Did you get that from Sandy?
No.
Yeah. Oh, she said that at her seminars.
Did she really?
Yeah. She
That's
does. She's like, yeah,
Oh,
it's a
cool.
part of your, not just, it's not your entire life. Yeah, she's really awesome. She like has cried at seminars. She is like amazing.
Oh
She's
yeah,
really
because they do
sweet.
the women's seminar out there in California, don't they?
Yes. Yeah.
That sounds so fun.
Yeah. She's really like informative, but she says that. And I'm like, thank God, even the judge says that.
You're like, okay, because they say like you got to have like your name out there, and I'm like, I think they know you girls. Like, I don't think that they're like, oh, we haven't seen Ariel in a year and a half, so you know what I mean?
Yeah, I think they do. Yeah, well, because too, like, they say your name when you go to shows. They don't say your number.
Mhm.
They, like, say you buy like your name and stuff on the pro level. I mean, you have a number on, but they usually just call you. Especially if you competed a decent amount of times, they do kind of like, know you a little bit.
Yeah.
No, that's what I love about the pro level, is that that's one of the honors that you do get as a pro, is not only the time exactly like when you're competing, but then also knowing like they're going to say your name versus your number. So I can sometimes honestly kind of laugh whenever on their stories they're like, I'm number 80. And I'm like, bitch, you're Ashley Caldwell. I know you.
Yeah, right. You don't need a number. Yeah.
Get a shirt, bitch. You're Ashley Caldwell.
Everyone knows who I am
Right.
already.
Yeah.
One of my clients didn't know who that was, and I was like,
Oh, really? Oh.
but she was
Well,
smart.
she
She was just getting into it, and I was like,
Oh,
honey,
well, that's why.
That's
I
why.
guess, Yeah.
it was funny. She was like just prepping for her. I was like, girl, I'm gonna send you a list, like all these pros. I need you to like
Do some
Yeah.
research, man.
know who
Yeah.
these people are.
Right.
Oh my gosh, that's so
I
funny.
know.
But no, thank you so much. This has been like just such a good conversation. I feel like
Yeah.
we're gonna love it. It's super informative, and you're just incredible to chat with. Like I could have talked to you.
Aw.
Yeah.
It's a Leo Virgo thing, I'm telling you.
Oh yeah.
That's why when you said Leo, I was like, yeah.
Like this makes sense.
Uh-huh. We'll have to definitely have you back on, like maybe like closer to next Olympia or something.
Yeah,
when you
hopefully have some good
qualify
news.
and everything. So then we can
Yeah.
talk more about that and whatnot.
Yeah.
So yeah, we really appreciate it. So
Cool.
we will see you guys again soon.
Awesome.
Thank you. Bye.